All right, send it.
So Ethan, with the Spartan race, what did you expect going into the race itself?
Honestly, like, I knew this was going to be extremely difficult. Um, a little trick that I've been trying to use in the past few weeks getting ready for this is just to expect the worst, and then when you go through it and you don't expect as worse as you thought, then it's not quite as terrible. So you go in expecting the worst, and when the worst doesn't happen, then it makes it a little bit more of a bearable experience.
Okay, what did you learn along the way?
Um, I think the biggest lesson that I personally learned during the hill climbs, during the obstacles, was that you really have to dig deep and reach a whole new level of the meaning of tough. Like, for me, going into this race with what I hope was at least half my lung function, was like I knew I had to dig deep and really push myself to finish this because my whole goal was to just finish. So I think that the biggest lesson I learned was that you really have to learn to dig deep within yourself and find and always remember that reason that you start.
So you talked about having 45% lung function. For people, can you kind of go into that and explain what that is?
So I was in the hospital, I think, in the middle of May, April, about April. And basically, over the years of having my cystic fibrosis, after just within time, my lungs basically just lose function. Like they just, I don't know. And, part of it is due to my lack of being consistent and being um, so adamant with my treatments. But I was at 28% lung function going into the hospital, and after um, 12 days of being in there, I was able to get it back up to 50%, which is my highest my highest number. It's actually 51%. So I came into this race hoping that my lungs would be functioning at around 50%, just because I knew that's just the best that they could do.
So from this Spartan experience, what did you gain from it?
Um, I gained a whole new level of, um, I guess, admiration for those who go into this. Like, it was not I mean, it was difficult for me, but there were a whole lots of different types of people. Um, in particular, there was a one guy in the age group or the heat that I was in when we all ran at around 8:30 this morning. There was one guy, I believe they called him Petey. He's a big guy, really big guy, and he was struggling. He was struggling just as much as me. Me and him were pretty close to the end with each other all the time, but like you really learn a real respect for the people who go through this, because this is a whole new level of difficult that I think people don't really grasp. When people see people competing in the Spartan, they don't understand how hard it is until you actually experience it.
So myself and the Tad Ninja knew this was an emotional experience for you. What did you think made it so emotional for you?
I think the biggest reason why it was such a motivational experience for me was because I knew going into this thing that this was literally going to be the most physically difficult and most physically challenging thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And like never in my life have I ran 4 miles on even like a track or even pavement, let alone in the hills of the desert with sand and dust, and then to throw obstacles in it. Like that's I never thought even last year that I could do something like that. And even for this race, I only had 1 month to train, And you know, you could ask Terry, and you can talk to Terry about my first experience getting ready for this, our first training together. Like when we attempted to run a quarter of a mile, I couldn't even run half of that without having to stop and cough a half lung out. But the emotional thing for me was that I wanted to prove to myself and prove to others with my condition that these tough things can be done. And CF doesn't have to be this big giant wall that keeps us from doing amazing things. And I've had some people ask me, I've had like I think a couple people ask me, why am I doing this race? And I said, why not do this race? Why not be someone with, something that can be so limiting, and why not do something that could, be something no one would expect?
Now, why would you recommend this experience to someone else?
Well, like I said, this brings on a whole new level of the word tough. Um, just in the training that I've had to really dig deep mentally to push myself to run farther, to do one more round of whatever our training was, whether that's carrying sandbags, carrying a bucket, doing lunges and running. You have to really train your mind to go past what it's been previously known to do, because your mind's going to give up before your body does. So when you can train your mind to push your body farther, then I honestly believe that you can accomplish some really great things. So I think the biggest thing I would say to people or the reason I would recommend this to other people, is because this teaches you a whole new level of what it means to find that strength within themselves. And this will really help you release the type of strength that you need to overcome very difficult things.